Pokemon has changed a lot over the years. Some things got better, and others got worse. A common complaint is that the games have gotten more hand-holdy. There's too much tutorial, it's too slow. Well, what if we put that to the test? Usually, once you're able to catch a Pokemon, you're pretty much free to start the game. So, I played every Pokemon generation to see just how long it takes to catch that first Pokemon and be set free on your journey. To test this most accurately, I started the timer and I was able to begin moving and stop the timer when the Pokeball clicked. Those two things are present in every Pokemon generation, so it seemed to be the best method. I also timed how long it took to get my starter because why not? For full transparency, I only tested the first game in each generation. So in Gen 1 it was Pokemon Red, in Gen 2 Pokemon Gold, in Gen 3 Pokemon Ruby, and so on. I did it this way because while some generations do have those sequels that make them faster, others do not, so it was only really fair to do it this way. Now, here's what I found out. In Generation 1 as well as other early generations, there's a pretty massive speed feature missing, the running shoes. Once you start the game, you have to slowly walk out of your house, enter the grass, and then Oak also slowly walks out of your house to stop you. He takes you back to the lab where you get your starter just over 1 minute into the game. Not bad, but the time between getting that starter Pokemon and actually being able to catch something else is a lot longer. You gotta immediately battle the rival, deal with all that dialogue, walk all the way up to get Oak's parcel, deliver it to him, and then in Gen 1, you apparently are not given Pokeballs for free. I really thought you were, but no, you gotta go all the way up to Viridian City and buy them yourself. Despite all of those slowdowns, Gen 1 still has you able to catch a Pokemon at around 8 minutes and 26 seconds. Obviously, there'd be some variance in this, I'm not a speedrunner, but that's my time. Now we move into Gen 2. This generation has significantly more dialogue than Gen 1. It's not all that bad at the very start. I still got my starter a minute and a half in, but then it gets very slow. You have to slowly walk up to Mr. Pokemon's house, get his egg, talk a lot to both him and Professor Oak, get a phone call with more dialogue, walk all the way down, and then finally there's the first rival battle. In Gen 1, that battle was immediate, but it doesn't really matter when the battle was, so that's not a big deal. What is a big deal is that you have to do all this dialogue with naming the rival in the game rather than before. It's not too slow, but it's definitely time loss. Gen 2 has a big benefit of getting Pokeballs for free without having to go buy them, but by the time you get them, you're already behind where Gen 1 was, so who cares? Gen 2 also features a famous part of Pokemon games, the catching tutorial. Though you can actually just say no to it, surprisingly. That probably saves like 20 to 30 seconds, which I immediately lost because my Pidgey was just not staying in the ball. I didn't secure my capture until 10 minutes and 54 seconds in. Massive time loss compared to Gen 1. You might think the failed capture shouldn't affect the time because it's a bit of RNG, but in some of the later games, you actually have a 100% catch rate on the first route. Since that feature is specific to those games, I figured that they should benefit from it in this test, so I decided that failed captures count towards the timer. Moving into Gen 3, you're able to move after getting out of the moving truck, but then you're instantly roped into a minute-long bit of dialogue, and then you have to go meet your rival in the house next door, which in all delays getting the starter to about 2.5 minutes in, but that's where the slowdowns end. From there, you're given the starter Pokemon, run up north to battle the rival, and then you make your way back down where you get your Pokeballs. Right after that, your mom gives you a new feature to this game, the running shoes. It's a little late, but we got them. All of this combined allowed me to catch a Pokemon at the 8 minute and 21 second mark, the fastest time yet. Which is surprising because I accidentally talked to a lot of optional NPCs and stuff. My only real explanation for why this was is that I think the game just runs faster. The battles are smoother and quicker to complete, their movement is a little bit better, and also there's less dialogue, which helps. With the current fastest out of the way, we now begin Gen 4. Diamond and Pearl are famously some of the slowest Pokemon games of all time, and spoiler alert, they did not defend themselves great here. To start off the game, you gotta leave your house, headbutt Barry, then go into Barry's house and talk to him again, and then walk all the way to the lake. Then there's a small bit of dialogue and then a Starly attack. This doesn't seem that slow, but with how these games run, it was. I didn't get to grab my starter until 3 minutes in, the slowest time for a starter so far. After going back and talking to your mom, you do get the running shoes. This is the saving grace of the generation. And then there's the nail in the coffin. Rowan's assistant has to show you around town, which is painstakingly slow. You are able to buy Pokeballs before you get them for free, which is a plus, but unfortunately not enough of one. In Generation 4, despite not even having a rival battle yet, I was not able to catch a Pokemon until 10 minutes and 17 seconds into the game. Don't get me wrong, it's still faster than Gen 2 was with that entire novel's worth of dialogue, but I'm a little disappointed because I honestly thought this gen would be the fastest, and oh, I was incorrect. Yo, by the way, I streamed all this testing on Twitch. I do other gaming challenges and stuff over there too, so maybe go follow. Also, subscribe on YouTube. Yeah. Anyways, Gen 5 is a bit of an interesting one because literally instantly you are given your starter. Like 30 seconds into the game, starter immediately. But then it has the drawback of 2 rival battles instead of 1, which costs a bit of time. After that, it's pretty fast though. There is a decent chunk of dialogue, but the text goes way faster than Game Boy games, so it's not a big deal. What is a big deal is the mandatory catching tutorial. It's the first game to have one before you can catch something, and it definitely showed because I was not able to catch a Pokemon until the 9-minute and 48-second mark. Without the catching tutorial, this had a chance to be the fastest generation yet, but instead it's one of the slower ones. Gen 6 though. This generation gets a lot of hate. 2D was better, 3D took the soul out of Pokemon, the story is bad, which are all valid complaints, but as far as this test goes, it actually performs pretty well. Notably, you're able to run right out the gate. That's instantly a huge time saving. You're able to run up and get your starter about 2 minutes and 18 seconds in. But that's not where time is truly saved. Every game has the rival battle, except Gen 4, but there was Starly, which counts. Either way, starting in Generation 6, you have a super effective move on your rival immediately. This cuts the time the battle takes in half, if not more. This game does have a mandatory catching tutorial, which is a little slow, but it also has a 100% catch rate on the first route. This prevents any RNG shenanigans, and I was able to secure my capture at 8 minutes and 16 seconds in. The fastest time yet. Gen 3 has the potential to be faster, but these are the times that I got, so they're the ones that I'm using. Now comes true modern Pokemon. These last 3 gens are where all the hand-holding tutorial complaints come from, so let's see if they're warranted starting in Gen 7. And I can immediately tell you, I kinda get the complaints. Right off the bat, you're locked into a ton of dialogue with Professor Kukui until 5 minutes into the game. 5 minutes, and I've barely been able to walk around yet. But oh, it does not stop there, because then you walk 5 steps and you have to be introduced to Lily. There's this whole cutscene where Nebby is attacked by Spearow and then you're about to die, and then boom, Tapu Koko poggers, and still it's not over yet. There's 3 more minutes of dialogue before you're finally given the starter at 11 minutes and 18 seconds. Just getting the starter in this gen is already slower than being able to catch a Pokemon in every other generation, and it still doesn't get faster from there. You then have to battle the rival. How? You have a super effective move, so the battle itself doesn't take long, but then there's a ton of dialogue afterwards, and then a mandatory catching tutorial. This gen does have that 100% catch rate on the first route, but it doesn't even matter. I caught a Picky Peck at 18 minutes and 33 seconds. The absolute slowest time so far, and it's not even close. Our second to last generation in this test is Generation 8. Will it still be slow like Gen 7? Well, you start with the game, have to go meet Leon in town, go through all these cutscenes, and just due to the nature of a 3D game, you do not get the starter until just over 5.5 minutes. That's not that bad, certainly beats the 11 minutes from Sun and Moon. In the first rival battle against Hop, he already has 2 Pokemon, which is a fairly hefty time loss. But the real kicker of Gen 8 is the forest. You have to run through the forest of multiple forest encounters, followed by a massive time waster of a battle against Zacian or Zamazenta. There's still tons of dialogue after this, and with all that time added up, I was not able to catch a Pokemon in Gen 8 until 17 minutes and 10 seconds into the game. Not even that far off from Gen 7. Maybe these recent gens really are slow to start? There's only one way to know for certain, and that's to test the most recent generation, Gen 9. To absolutely nobody's surprise, this game had a ton of slowdown, and no, not that kind. A few minor things here and there that I didn't really remember. Firstly, even though you meet the starters 3 minutes in, you then have to walk them down the street. Not bad, but for some reason you're not able to run for the first half of the road. You just slowly walk and it wastes like 30 seconds or something. Then it's fairly similar to Gen 8. You have the cute little cutscene with all the starters showing off their personalities, and then you get to choose one. Also, I kind of forgot to save the starter time during this, but it was about 7 minutes and 33 seconds. Choosing the starter is followed by a a battle against Nimona, some more cutscenes and dialogue, and then in this gen, you actually do the catching tutorial yourself. Very cool and modern, though you still don't catch something until 14 minutes and 38 seconds in. And there you have it. All 9 generations tested on how fast it is to catch a Pokemon. Gens 3 and 6 were roughly tied for fastest, and Gen 7 was easily the slowest. But there's clearly a massive gap between Gens 1 through 6 and 7 through 9. Does this truly mean anything about the games being handholdy or too slow? I don't know.